This is Dory Ingram, and I'm the Atlanta coordinator for the Initiative to Protect Jekyll Island. And I'm sitting with Mr. David Poythress, who has declared his intention to run for governor in 2010 and has graciously agreed to speak with me this afternoon. Thanks so much for your time, Mr. Poythress.
Thanks, Dory. Glad to be with you.
I'm going to just give a little bit of a background statement here, and then Mr. Poythress has been given the questions, and so he's going to address each of those questions. Mr. Poythress, if you're elected governor, you'll be responsible for appointing the Board of Directors of the Jekyll Island Authority, the 9-member state agency which governs the island. For this reason, the Initiative to Protect Jekyll Island State Park, as a public service to its members, would like to clarify the position that each gubernatorial candidate takes on the Jekyll redevelopment issue, which has become a subject of statewide interest over the past 2 years. So how would you address this?
Well, first let me say that I served on the Jekyll Island Authority. I was a member of the authority for almost 4 years, some years ago, so I have a very, very soft spot in my heart for Jekyll Island. I am very dissatisfied and disappointed with the performance of the Jekyll Island Authority, specifically with respect to this redevelopment proposal. It is a bad idea. It is bad for the island. It's bad for the people of Georgia. When I'm governor, I will look at reconstituting that board, and I will invite them, rather pointedly, to look at reconstituting the staff. We've got to have people on the board and on the staff who are committed to Georgia, who are committed to the island, and not committed to private gain. And in selecting, Dory, to anticipate your next question, in selecting those people, I will be looking for mature people who have a balanced background in business, in environmental protection, and in the culture and the history of Georgia. All of those are rolled up in Jekyll Island. A tremendous amount of our state's history is focused on that island. It is a pristine ecosystem and very delicate. It is also the people's resort. The people of Georgia own that resort. Every one of us is a resort owner, and we all have a vested interest in that island. And we need people on that authority who will have a balanced interest in all of those features.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Poythress. Would you describe your vision of how best to balance the state park's mission with the Jekyll Island Authority's financial needs, including the appropriate level of commercial development, the enhancement of the quality of the visitor experience, and the protection of the island's ecosystems?
Well, first, let me talk about what the island's purpose is not. It is not to make money. It is not a revenue source for the people of Georgia, for the state of Georgia. It is a park for the people of Georgia. So the object is not to make money. There is obviously an interest in the authority being self-sustaining. And to do that, I don't have a fundamental problem with public-private partnerships at the conceptual level, as long as it is a real partnership, as long as it's not a disguise for private developers making a lot of money at the expense of the taxpayers. I think if commercial development were expanded on the island, and I think there's a case for that, I think it's perfectly fine for the state to have an interest in that and to take an override, for example, on the leases on the commercial property. I think we, in looking to the further commercial development of the island, we've got to take into account, obviously, the ecosystem. We've got to be very concerned about, for example, the amount of impervious paving that goes on the island. I think we've probably got too much already with some of the parking lots. We've got to take into account the fragility of the ecosystem, which exists anytime you've got water and land abutting. And we've got to take into account the history of the island and the existing historical structures on the island.
All right. You touched on the subject of commercial development. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the idea of a public-private partnership as a means of facilitating the redevelopment?
Well, other than to say conceptually I don't have a problem with it. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of problem with this one, the one that's under discussion. It is not a partnership. The private developer is making out fantastically, shall we say, at the expense of the taxpayers. It is a very, very bad deal and needs to be undone.
Would you state your feelings about the park's affordability mandate and its place in the Jekyll revitalization effort?
Well, as you know, the statute whereby the island was acquired in the first place states that it will be forever maintained as a park for I believe it's the ordinary people of Georgia. I think that has to be a matter that is constantly borne in mind by the authority. It is not intended to be a high-end resort for the hyper-rich, nor is it intended just for people to camp on the beach. It's got to be maintained in a modest, moderate way for the ordinary people of Georgia, which is what the statute says. The other part of that statute, as you have alluded to, says that no more than 35% of the land area of the island above, I believe, high tide or mean tide can be developed. And there's quite a bit of discussion about exactly how you calculate that. I think the calculations that were originally developed and originally used are probably the right ones. There have been some recalculations which included the causeway, included arguably a good bit of marshland, and that has been used as sort of a device, so to say, to increase the developable amount of the land. I think that's a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. So you've alluded to the protection of the ecosystems and the 65-35 division. What steps would you specifically take to protect the pristine qualities of Jekyll Island and to guarantee in perpetuity the conservation of at least 65% of the natural land area? In other words, can you be a little more specific about what you would do to facilitate that?
Well, I think the key really is appointing the right people to the board and making sure that you have the right people on the staff who are carrying out the board's directions. The conceptual protections are already in the law. The 35%, the mandate for ordinary people of Georgia, and certainly all of the environmental protections are already written into the law. So I don't know that we need to do anything more structurally. We just need to have the right people in place to carry out the law.
Mm-hmm. These questions that I've been given may not cover everything you'd like to say. So is there anything else that you want to tell us about your vision for the future of Jekyll?
Jekyll Island really is a jewel in the crown of Georgia. There's nothing like it that I know of in the country. An island that is a resort owned by the people of a state for their use daily. It has a tremendous amount of our history rolled up in it. I'll tell you how Jekyll got its name one of these days if you're interested. It's got a lot of our history, our culture. It is a very fragile ecosystem, and it is a resort for the people of Georgia. The board needs to have all of those things in mind as they manage day to day the ongoing operations of the island to keep it what it was intended to be, that is, a resort for the people of Georgia.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate the time that you've given to us, and best wishes in your campaign.
Thanks.